let's say mandates have ended, there's no more restrictions, Trudeau's out of the picture, and Val, you are Prime Minister. What is the one other priority you would have to change in this country?
Oh man, there's a lot of issues. There's issues for our Indigenous people. There's issues, for their clean water. And there's just many other issues that come up every day. And but I think we need to look at the basis of where these issues also come up from, because some of these issues aren't even ones that are issues. They create more issues to create that division, They say there's a minority has this issue and this person this issue, there's a trans issue, there's that issue. They're not issues. They're just opinions. They're just people out there with a belief and a set of beliefs and opinions. And you just let them free for however they feel, and that's it. You wouldn't have a problem. If you brought attention to it and say it's different, now you're creating a problem. So you tell everybody they're different for whatever reason, then you got a million different people that can't see eye to eye because you're different because you're white. So we can't be the same, So you spin that narrative, and then you get people. They underestimated how much Canadians will unite. They totally underestimated us.
And people were talking about how inadvertently Trudeau's actually brought us all together.
I know.
And I guess I want to bring up CBC always has a lot of programming on, diversity and things like this. And what is the difference between that, how they kind of try to force diversity, if you will, and like what's happening here in Ottawa right now with all this like natural organic unity?
Because it's like a toddler. If you tell a toddler don't touch this, they're going to touch it, right? So, I mean, it's a weird analogy, but if you think about it, their diversity issue, they're creating racism.
Right.
They're not making diversity, they're creating racism.
Right.
And I've been watching it for 10 years now. And my wife is Irish English, and and her dad, I joke with him all the time. I'm like, you're the minority in this country. And he's like, I know, right? And I said, that's what it is, because, and I have a good friend, and he's of German background, he's a Canadian boy. And I said, I got more rights than you in this country. That's messed up. He's like, no, you don't. He goes, I see it every day. There's, if you're the same privileges. I said, that's crap.
Right.
I said, me as a person of color can say whatever I want right now. I could call you a racist for no reason, but I can just say it, and no one will judge me for it. But if you call me a racist, all of a sudden you're wrong because you're white. So that counter, they've created racism against white people by telling you you're wrong for being white. It's insane to me. It's so insane to me. Imagine you had a white show right now, all white people.
Never going to happen. No, they're not going to produce that on CBC.
It would never fly, because so when you keep telling, again, you push something and you push it so far it goes the other way. And then you create that racism. Give you an example. About 10 years ago, and I saw this happening. I'm Punjabi, when my Sikh background is, for anybody who knows that. The Sikhs are the ones that wear the turbans with the beard.
Okay.
And
that looks like a toque, but okay.
Well, I don't wear a turban. I'm not Sikh, I'm not religious. But for those people that are religious, they wear turbans. And there was a big movement, I think it started in Ontario and it was in BC as well, where they said we don't want to wear helmets when we ride our motorcycles.
I heard about this.
Because it's our religious right to wear turbans. And I said, okay, well, this is a problem now, because you have every right to that religious freedom to wear that turban. But that doesn't mean that surpasses the laws of this country, which are to wear a helmet. So you have the right to wear a turban, but then don't ride the motorcycle. Or choose to take it off and ride the motorcycle. And I thought, I understood the argument and I understood why, but I also understood that they shouldn't be able to push that. And when they do, what's going to happen is you're going to do the counter narrative. And then you're going to get everybody who doesn't wear a turban say, well, why do they get to not do it and we don't? Because then you create that separatism, right? So when you're trying to push an agenda saying we're acknowledging their rights, we're acknowledging their right to be religious and exercise it, you're inadvertently discriminating against everybody else. So I don't think it's easy. It's a hard line to follow, but it can be done. And I think that's why I started watching that happen, and I didn't agree with it. And I thought, this is the start. This is the start, because you get more and more immigrants coming into this country, which is fantastic. But once you start making them the other, then you start getting that division.
And that motorcycle thing's an interesting example, because on one hand, it's a slippery slope to say, okay, this is what it means to have our laws and rules. Oh, there's an exception. And it's like, well, how many more exceptions are we going to make? But I never thought of that other side of it, which is it's inadvertently going to kind of create this weird division, and not necessarily like infighting, but like you
that's
said.
what I'm saying. It starts to create racism, because you get that guy, let's say hypothetical white guy, that white male who now is like,
why do I have to wear a helmet?
You can't open your mouth because you're a white male. You have no right to say anything. But like that guy who had never had a racist bone in his body, watches time after time after time his rights being squashed, but the visible minority, as they like to say, rights being surpassed past his, what's going to happen? That guy's inadvertently going to become racist. It's like he's getting trained to be racist, even if he never felt that way. Like, how do you blame them, you know? It's so weird. And it's
I blame Jerry Butts personally. Like, that's sorry, man, but that's if you're watching, Jerry, I think it's your fault. Nothing personal, Jerry. In my experience, watching how the Liberal Party works is they really tokenize groups. They're like, hey, we really care about Indigenous, and like, let's get a bunch of photos with Indigenous people, and they use that tokenization to like appear as if they care about those issues to win support. Yeah.
So here's a big example. So the reason you're actually not seeing, my opinion, again, just my opinion, but the reason you're not seeing more minorities as we see as minorities here is for that same reason. We've created division and told them, you have your set of problems for these things. You have your set of problems for these things. And as the Liberal government, we're helping you out. We're giving you handouts of government checks for sitting on your butt not working. We're giving you this. Indigenous people have their own fight that they've been fighting a long time for a lot of things, and they don't want to be counterproductive to their own struggle. Yeah. And they say, well, we're going to come here and start supporting these guys. What about us? Because you created that, what about us? You got Indian truckers out there. There's a lot of Indian truckers in this country, trust me. Yeah. And they're not here. There's some here, but the majority aren't here. They should be here.
I talked to a Sikh trucker.
Yeah, but just very few. There's millions of them.
There's a lot more.
And they should be here, but they're thinking, this country's been great for us. Immigration, they let our families in. Yeah. They feel like they've been given something, right? Okay. And they don't want to jeopardize that. Right. So now they say, if we start making us think about this, what's going to happen? And I feel that's out there. I feel a lot of them. And then there's a lot of ignorance of saying, oh, well, I already got the vaccine, so what does it matter? Yeah. They're not thinking past that. That's not the argument. That's not the fight. The fight is, where is it going to lead? Yeah. And for the future generations and all those things, why it's still important to fight. So I think there's a disconnect somewhere, and that's why you aren't seeing more of them. But
okay. Do you think that's an irrational fear? That
No, I think it's not an irrational fear. It's a fear that was created, and it makes sense why it was, because I don't know.
Well, but it's like, okay, these people are afraid that if they start showing pro-freedom values as I hate using the term person of color, but as somebody who's not white, they're going to be ignored by the media like yourself. So what are they afraid of? They're afraid that the government's going to be like, oh, well, you support the wrong thing, so we're not going to give you free stuff anymore. I
don't think it's like a straight out direct fear, like they're going to come down on them or something. I think it's kind of maybe almost an internal struggle of they feel obligated to just keep quiet and stay out of it. Right. You know what I mean? Because They feel like, no, this isn't our fight. Okay. It's one of those. This isn't our fight. We have enough that we fight for. Actually, this one's not ours.
And I guess actually you're probably living proof of that. Have you gotten any crap from people of, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Or
yeah, I said, I've randomly posted some random nothings on my Facebook probably in the last 20 years, but honestly never really posted anything. I don't have Instagram or TikTok or any of those things. I posted when I felt inclined after the second or third day here. I posted some pictures of what I'd seen. I was overcome with emotion, and I had a little write-up that I wrote for being proud to be a Canadian again. I wrote on my Facebook. And I got a few people saying great, good likes and this and that. And I had, somebody comment and be like, oh, if you knew it was funded by Nazis, Supremists, you wouldn't be part of it. And I was like, do you know me at all? I don't do things without knowing what I'm doing. I'm not just going to leap and jump and then ask questions. And I said, A, I don't believe it's true. And B, even if it was true, what does it matter? Yeah. You got a million people here for the right thing. It doesn't matter who's supporting in the background or for whatever agenda they might have. If a guy walking down the street is a known criminal who's been in jail for most of his life for murdering someone, he's walking down the street and my little kid falls in front of him on a bike and he picks him up and then goes on his way, I'm judging him for that one good action he did that I interacted with. And that independent action was a good action. I'm not using his history to judge that action. I'm not saying, well, it wasn't worth it because he's a criminal. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. He still did a nice act there. So whether it was funded by, doesn't matter who funded or whatever was part of it, the people here are fighting for the right reason. That's what you need to focus on. Yeah. People so quickly focus on the negative. Even if there isn't any, if you make it up, people focus on it. Yeah. Right? Because negative will, look at Google, how Google works. Mm-hmm. Right? They strategically set up their search because they know negative searches get more likes. So if you get like 5 things, you know how they do that preemptive thing when you go, what is, and they
what
preempt
is,
it.
yeah.
So they have a list of things that go in there, and they realize that the negatives always stand out. So before positives and a negative shows up, people are going to click on the negative.
Right.
And then they engineered it that they knew if they do 4, so they did a point where you could put in what is the name of, and you'd get a list, right?
Yeah.
They had it at a certain number, they moved it to 10. Then they moved it back up to 4. And the reason they moved it to 4, they realized psychologically, I don't know how, I listened to a podcast on it, that they engineer, so they realized after studies is that when you see 4 results, the negative one is going to stand out the most. And people naturally are gravitated to what's that. You know, if they say, why did Trump help a child? Why did Trump donate to this? Why did Trump do this thing positive? And why did Trump say F you to so-and-so? They're going to click on that.
Right.
Because it's new, it's media that want, you know, it's entertainment.
And they're exploiting our psychology as well.
Exactly. So entertainment will always get attention. So same thing like here, you know, you get the counter protester 7 blocks back, CTV's newscast is on them because that's going to drive attention, right? Yeah. So our communist states, they exist. So for you to think that Canada can't be one of them is very dense because it gets there very quickly. And so North Korea wasn't always the way it is. Look at Australia right now. You know, they were never like this, but we're getting there very quickly. So people who just sit there and be like, oh, it's not that bad or it's not going to get that bad, they're disillusional. And if we don't do something, if we don't stand up, that's where it's going. Because right now it's like, I mean, when China implemented the social credit system, like half the people don't even know what that is. Yeah. And that's coming here. Of course it is. What's the point of having a vaccine passport other than to control the actions? And then when you say, oh, put the rest of your medical records on there. Oh, your family has a history of heart problems. Oh, your insurance rate is this now. It's true. Know, like that's where it goes.
And people have this idea that, oh, nothing bad could ever happen. It could never get that bad.
That's the thing.
And
we're privileged because we live in this first world country, in this beautiful country where nothing really bad has happened. Yeah. Most of us haven't lived through a war.
Yeah. Especially in Canada.
But that's the problem is that like most people haven't gone through a war and they haven't lived through something really difficult. So they don't understand what it feels like. So you live in this country where everything kind of is great. You know, so you feel like it can't be taken away because you've never experienced that. Yeah. That doesn't mean it can't be a reality. Yeah. It can happen.
I heard someone describe it as we've had it for too good for too long here. No?
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know, but that's sad if that's a reality.
Do you think Venezuela is another comparison
have you seen everything going on down there?
Well, it's an oil-rich country. Yep. And it was doing very well. I want to say like late 90s to early 2000s. It was like thriving. Mm-hmm. And then they started to socialize their oil industry.
They socialized everything. It's a fully socialized country now, and people are suffering. Yeah. If you look at what's happening in Venezuela, it's insane. Their healthcare is like...
actually, that's been debunked. Have you heard?
Everything's been debunked. They could probably debunk that I'm brown. It's ridiculous.
Turns out this is a mask. He's wearing a mask, you guys.
Yeah. Oh my God. Here's another thing I'll say, because again, being brown, I'm allowed to say it, and you can't because you're white. The minority thing is a push by liberals for a reason. It's for votes. It's the same thing that's happening in the States. Yeah. They're letting them flood in, and then they're going to give them money. Well, what do you think they're going to vote? They're going to vote liberal.
So you're saying it's a huge system of like bribery for votes?
Of course it is. Of course it is, because again, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So if you come to this country and you can just walk in and then get paid to be here, are you going to tell that person, I don't like you, I don't want you in power? Or are you going to say, thank you very much, I'll vote for you again? And you have enough of that, to counter the other votes, then you're going to stay in power.
It's a numbers game. It's a power game. Well, thanks for coming to our podcast. When's the next episode, Val?
Totally, we should start one, right? It's important to get the true message out there. That's all it's about. It's about getting truth out there, and if people want to find it, they'll find it.
The spirit of this convoy will live. Like, share, and subscribe, and send an e-transfer to the link down below at GregTheCanadian at hotmail.com. Thanks for watching, guys. We're going to keep fighting for your freedom.